And? To screw it up less next time, although we can't possibly screw it up as badly as the city is screwing this up. And welcome to the This Week in Worcester podcast. I'm Tom Marino, editor of This Week in Worcester. This is Mr. John Edward Keogh. He is executive producer at Managing Media. He is the president of Hollywood Film Group, and he is a valued and rock star contributor to This Week in Worcester. What's up, John?
What's up, man?
Living the dream.
How you doing?
You know, it was an interesting week. We'll get there in a moment. But did want to check in with you. You have a big event coming up this week, the Dead of Winter Film Festival. How is planning going?
It's going pretty good. There's a lot of things that go on with these events that you can't ever anticipate every single thing. You just got to try to do it the best you can. So I think that it's better than last year as far as that part's concerned. And right now it's just getting all the things in. Everybody waits till the last second to get tickets, no matter how often you ask them to get stuff in advance. And that is hard to fix. Like, it's hard to deal with, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because it makes your whole planning, you don't know what the hell's going to happen, right?
Well, I have an idea because, like, for example, ticket sales are definitely ahead of where they were last year. So I have that idea. It's a DCU center, so walk-up sales could be really heavy, which means the numbers could spike, considerably. Last year was like 760 over the 2 days. If we get to if we get to 1,000, which I think is definitely doable, and that's where I think it's headed, 500 each day is not that bad, right? That doesn't seem like a lot. But if it spikes to 2,000, now you're dealing with things like not enough merch to sell, and much longer lines because you can't staff. Yeah. So you have to staff based on the pre-sales. You can't always staff based on people who just decide in the moment, and it's hard to anticipate because now the weather's supposed to be nice, so that might add more people. It's a little easier to park for DCU than it was for Mechanics Hall, right? Because there's a parking lot right across the street, and then there's another parking lot behind it, and so that makes it a little bit easier. So that might increase it too. So we'll see. You know what I mean? I'm excited about it. I'm also, excited as one of the organizers. I always want to get it over.
Yeah.
To the next thing, I think this year one of the things that is exciting about it is that there's a lot of companies have jumped in with sponsorships, so that definitely offsets visibility, and it offsets costs. So like Wormtown Brewery, Beyond Wrestling sponsored this week. That's cool. So that helps. And then a lot of vendors. One of the vendors that jumped in this year was Renewal by Anderson, which is kind of interesting. So they're going to be there with a table at a horror festival. So it's going to be really interesting to see how their table interacts with the rest of the stuff. You know what I mean? Like, because it's different. It's so different, But it's cool. Oh, and then one, what is it? There's a vendor I've been going after for a while that ended up signing up. I have to tell you the name. It's funny, but the song, the rap song for our rap aficionados, where the line that says "Hold up, wait a minute." Everybody knows that line, right? Hold up, wait a minute. Right, that song, in a little Dr. Dre accent. So they have a version of it called Hooked Up, Wait a Mini. Hooked Up, Wait a Mini. Hooked Up, Wait a Mini. And they make everything miniature. So it's like tiny little everything. And I love it. I think it's great. So check those things out. So yeah, if you're gonna come this week, and actually, you know what I'm gonna do right now? So anybody who's gonna come right now, I'm doing this live right this minute. If you're gonna come to the festival, I'm gonna make a special code right now for This Week in Worcester watchers that get you a discount. How about that? Have we ever done this on the show before? We've never done this.
I think so.
Live. So I'm gonna make a coupon. What do you want the coupon code to be, Tom? How about TWIW?
There you go.
All right, and everybody's gonna get 10% off. All right, it's in there. I like how I can do that like in a second. So that's right. Everybody who buys Dead of Winter passes gets 10% off right now. Use code TWIW at checkout. How about that, Tom? I never did that before.
You put it in the chat?
I'm doing it right now. Bang. Look at that. Of course, it only goes to the Facebook chat, so you have to put it to the rest.
Oh, there it is.
If you want to send it.
We'll put it on the screen a few times during the show. So I don't know if you noticed, John. I put together a little video today. Oh, not today, but this week. That touched about clearly the biggest story of the week. So I'd like to play that, and then we'll return to discuss. Give me one moment. Oh, weird. Well, I'm screwing it up. 1 second, please.
Dum dum dum. Technology.
I thought I could play it from. Yeah, it doesn't matter.
We don't have.
I screwed it up. The answer is I screwed it up.
We're not AI. We're real people. AI sucks. People want to see us talk about the trial.
I know. And here I am, taking forever. What a dope. All right. My apologies. I thought I could play that from a desktop app, and that was a lie.
Where am I? You're in a different universe, Ashley.
All right, here we go.
Delay.
You done yelling? You done yelling?
Are you done yelling? Acting like a big shot?
We're all set here. You can go inside.
No, you go on.
You're not going to tell me what to do. You can go inside. You're about to be arrested for disturbing the peace.
Supervise you here, tyrant. You keep.
Let's get him. Look at him. Look at this guy. Look at Hey! What are you doing?
Hey, what are you doing? Oh, you're interfering! Don't listen! Somebody record this!
This America. I haven't done anything. You just hit my phone down, and then I say something, say I should shut the fuck up. That's the way it is. I haven't done anything.
Let me see this. Let me see it.
That's my phone, officer.
It's evidence now.
No, it's not.
Bitch ass nigga. What? What was it? No, it wasn't nothing. It wasn't nothing.
Stay there. Stay there.
This is my friend, my roommate, a woman I have known for 3 years, tackled to the ground, on the ground. Get on the ground now! Ow! Get on the ground! Stop. Get on the ground, I'll move! There is a knee on my back.
Hey! What are you doing? Hey! What are you doing? Oh, you're interfering! Oh,
So, there is a lower caste and an upper caste, and apparently the lower caste can't touch people. So, as I'm sure you're well aware, the trial of a former consul Etel Haxhiaj was Tuesday and bled into Wednesday, and jury found her guilty of assault and battery on a public official, and not guilty of interfering with police. I think is what it is. The instructions to the jury, as they probably should be, I guess, were very narrow in kind of the options that they had to decide the case, and they decided how they decided it, and it is what it is. As John says, it is title. Some interesting things that happened during the trial. One of the officers that testified on Tuesday on behalf of the prosecution said in court that his understanding was that they were there to support ICE, contrary to the narrative of the police department and the city manager's office. I've since, I didn't want to report anything on the case because it was ongoing, but multiple officers filed incident reports for that day on Eureka Street, and multiple officers wrote that the call was to support either federal law enforcement or another law enforcement agency. So that's what they believed at the time. It seems like the narrative changed sometime after that.
Which means that the phone call that was made by a person, there was also another phone call that was made to the dispatch, saying that it wasn't just this idea of a law enforcement agency that needed support. And so we know now from the paperwork that dispatch and those officers ignored that call. So that call was not a part of the operations for that day. The phone call from a concerned citizen that said, men in masks with guns had surrounded a teenage girl in a car. So that part of the call was ignored. Or that call was not considered important. And so even that, is a question, because there's no policy that's like a stated policy that tells you when a call comes in, what priority each call gets. But you can see by their reaction clearly that the call that was from the actual federal agent to the police saying which was not true. He said, if I was a single federal officer surrounded by people, right? The original call.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he didn't tell the truth.
Well, I think that came from, their office, though. I don't think that came from somebody on the ground there.
Okay. Well, but anyways, the original call in was not true, but that's the call that they prioritized.
Yeah. Yep.
And regardless of the policy, and the city manager and the mayor and everybody saying that the policy isn't to assist ICE. They it's nice that they say it. Doesn't make any sense. That's not how the officers responded. They responded in assistance, thinking that was the priority. Their conduct that day, yelling at citizens and yelling, they didn't ask. Although one officer said he did ask and received identification from an officer on the scene, but his body camera doesn't reflect that conversation ever happening. So that, there's a bunch of stuff like that needs to be parsed. Now, of course, that wasn't what was on trial. That's only what we can now glean from when an officer gets on the stand and says that he engaged with another officer, that officer identified themselves and showed him a badge, even though his body camera never at any point does he say he engaged with him. Did he even identify himself by name, or that he showed a badge? But this officer wrote in a report that that's what happened. And so that's interesting to say. Yeah. That's just one of the reports. There's a ton of them, lots of pages to kind of review. And again, within the context of just this one trial, it's hard to parse all that information all at once. In one sense, I'm glad a trial happened, because at least we have now access to that information, which we wouldn't always have if it hadn't, right? It would be harder to get.
Yeah, right. And also of note, Ashley Spring, who I see in the chat, reached a plea agreement in which she has pretrial probation until May 8th, and then this all goes away for her, which is great. It's a long way from assault and battery with a deadly weapon to pretrial probation. It's a long path.
It's also not exactly a plea agreement, because there's no plea involved in her deal. Okay, well,
the reached an agreement then.
Yeah,
fair enough.
That's only because there's been people who have been arguing with Ashley on your page, including officers who clearly do not understand the law in any way, shape, or form. Like former union president Rick Cipro doesn't understand the difference between proffered agreements, plea agreements, disposition agreements. There's like 7 or 8 different results that can happen pre-trial, and it's scary that a union president didn't know of those things, and he clearly did not know. Clearly, in his comments on your page. Wow, that was super scary. A provisional dismissal, which is, by the way, there's so many things that the magistrate and the judge can do before it ever gets to trial. There's a lot of different things that can happen in a case. There's another thing called null prosse. Null prosse basically makes it like their arrest didn't happen. And then there's a different version of null prosse after after a trial, but before a jury verdict. And there's all kinds of different things that can take place to resolve a case. And so you would think officers should know that information. They should be trained in that information. It should be part of their education, that they should understand what they're doing, because what they do with charging people leads to these results. And so you've asked many times, Tom, about a closeout report to find out what results are taking place. In this case, a prominent multi-decade police officer did not know of a specific outcome for an arrest, which is amazing. Amazing.
I mean, they handed off to the DA, and that's that. I don't know.
But that's what I'm saying. They shouldn't be doing that. They should understand the law. They clearly don't understand the law, or at least one of them doesn't. And that's not a good idea. That's not. Officers are literally the executors of the law. That's their job. And so they should know the law. They should have an understanding, especially someone who's supervising and training officers who are executing on the ground. That doesn't make sense. Training officers should know that, at least, if you're going to teach officers what to arrest people for and what the potential results should be. Very, very, very disheartening to see that.
I showed up a bit after they had come back from lunch on Tuesday. I wasn't able to make it Wednesday, so I didn't see Etel's testimony. But I did see. I think part they started before lunch and it continued after lunch. So I only saw part of the complaining witness in Counsel Haxhiaj's case testify, and it was weird. Said that this officer said that she only touched Etel once, well, with one hand, and was to escort her. And then the defense lawyer, Etel's lawyer, played the video, immediately, and was like, "There's two hands." I'm paraphrasing, obviously, but don't you have two hands on her right there? She's like, "Well, I escorted her with two hands." So that testimony was a little messy. But I mean, in the end, I think it just came down to there's, although she was grabbed from behind and, spun around, when she pushed the other officers, when she pushed the officers' hands off of her, in a very, reactionary thing. We've seen this in other cases, much more egregiously, officers antagonizing and then kind of will grab somebody from behind, and when they naturally react, or, they bring such overwhelming intimidation. This isn't just here. This is, I'm thinking of videos from all over the place. They surround a person and are all screaming, sometimes contradictory orders, and flight response kicks in, and now you're, resisting arrest and evading and all this stuff, right? But I mean, I think it came down to, there's a still of, or there's a 5 seconds of video of Etel pushing her hands in response to being grabbed off of her, and thus the instructions to the jury were basically, if she touches her, that's it. And so, I don't know, outside of jury nullification, I don't know how much wiggle room they really had.
I mean, I don't know how this jury found this result, because the instructions did also include intent. You have to intent when it's specifically when you add the enhancement of a law enforcement officer, you have to have the intent in your mind to assault the law enforcement officer. And that element, there's been no proof of that. Now, the jury decided that, they think that, but there's no proof that she had an intent to assault this person. It's a reactionary move, regardless of how anybody looks at it. And so what I think is at issue, and this is just a long-term problem in the United States of America, is our judges are stupid and don't know how to instruct juries anymore. Because in almost any other circumstance, this is a very rare thing that would even get to trial. And the fact that it got to trial, and you had her testify on her own behalf, of her intent and her thought process, I'm just shocked. And so it makes me immediately suspect that the jurors were not honest in their interviews before trial about their knowledge, their pre-existing knowledge of this case, which I find it hard to believe any juror that said that they didn't hear about this. I don't believe any juror who said that. I immediately am suspicious of that.
No, three jurors did say they heard about it and were seated anyway.
Yeah. And so that's, but the ones who said that were seated that said that they never heard of the case, again, this is me. If I was the judge, I'm not the judge. I wasn't in the courtroom. But I would have removed them on that alone because yes, you did, you liar. But anyways, that's okay. And I also then look at the age range, the composition of the jury, and they tend to be similar to the voters who return the majority that we see currently sitting at city council, which, makes a lot of sense because folks that actually have to work and actually have, to struggle and fight to do things, for the most part, find ways out of jury duty. And I mean, that's what it is. And I'm shocked. I've said this to many people. I did not believe a jury in Worcester could find her guilty of anything, and definitely not assault. And it blows my mind. I guess interference would have been more likely in my mind than the assault. But I'm shocked. I was shocked by the results. Definitely the version of it. If they're going to find they're guilty of one thing, it would have been the other. So, that's it blows my mind because I don't agree with the judge's interpretation of the law. And it is an interpretation. It is not the law. It's an interpretation. The instructions are an interpretation, which can be challenged in the appellate, part of our legal system, right? Instructions are a judge's understanding and explanation of the law to the jury, and that's where most appeals really are. Appeals aren't really about innocence and guilt. They're mostly about judicial instructions and if the law was followed, all that kind of stuff. So an appeal would be very difficult. It's very difficult to appeal judicial instructions.
Yeah. Pre-trial, there was a couple of things that were not allowed. One, not allowed to be used as evidence. One, the DOJ report, and specifically the, that report's conclusions on the Worcester Police Department's propensity to use excessive force. Part of, or a good chunk of, I don't know how to kind of frame the quantity, the how much of the defense was based around this, but some of the defense was based around that when the officer grabbed the former counsel Haxhiaj, there was no reason to do that, and that was a use of force, and that her response was, to push her arms off her was reactionary and within her rights because the use of force was unwarranted. And the DOJ report would have supported that, and also the defense attempted to call Officer Thomas Duffy to the stand. And that was also rejected by the judge. He wasn't there. He wasn't part of the case. So, and of course, Duffy is the union president of the complaining witnesses, the complaining officers union. Right? He's the president of their union. So, so that certainly hurt the defense's case. But I mean, I don't mean to make to downplay it, but I mean it kind of is what it is. Jury decided what it decided. I have no idea if Etel's going to look at an appeal at all. I have no idea.
I mean, appeal is at this level. Appeals are very difficult. First of all, it's not a felony case. In a felony case, there's some state stuff related to appeals that kind of happen automatically. So there's like resources and there's public, support. There's a lot of things that happen for felonies. This is a misdemeanor, and it's a misdemeanor without time, right? So the disposition was not a time related thing. So appealing it is related just to the verdict, and there's no public thing. So Etel would have to pay for the appeal. And I don't know how much that would cost. Attorneys cost money. So it's just there's no public support. I mean, she might be able to get a public defender to do it, but public appellate lawyers are like very rare in this state, especially. There's a lawyer shortage in Massachusetts, and so which we've heard now from a couple different people. A couple lawyers have told us that, and so again, it would be a resource heavy thing. So Etel would have to raise money, I'm sure, to be able to afford to do that appeal. And then again, that's a decision. Does she want to go through that? Because that's going to be more news and more more headlines and more this and that. And appeals court is different than this court. It's very technical. So, maybe she makes the decision not to do it. I don't know.
Yeah.
I will say this about those two denials. It's really, the judge made some very interesting things because some of that stuff still came in, right, in testimony. And so, that, generally speaking, when you make denials of like what topics a defense attorney can approach for their theory, right? Because it was part of the theory approach, is you usually are very wide in that area, and then you cut it down through objections and through sustains and those things in the course of a trial, right? So it's like, where are you going? Like the lines of questioning are the things is where a judge uses a scalpel. But again, at this level, those judges have very few trials. Very few trials. So, his trial experience, although he's been a judge for a long time, might be very limited. And I think that, maybe it's much more likely that maybe a more experienced trial judge would have let it in and then made Etel's lawyer be very specific in the lines of questioning, right? Like, because obviously Duffy wasn't at the scene. So if he's being asked questions on the stand, it would have to be very specifically related to his role in the, the overarching, kind of view of Etel from the police department and how that would have affected maybe officers' decision-making on that day. It would have to be related to the day. And then even more than the judge asked this question, you can actually see it in the transcript. The judge asked, why wasn't this brought up in a motion to dismiss, whether or not these charges were retaliatory or not? And so there's a question there, whether the attorney could have asked that, because there was one motion to dismiss that was denied. Maybe there was more information that would have been needed for a judge to accept a motion to dismiss. There's so many specific things here. It's like, it's hard. And I'm not an attorney. I have studied a lot of things and I've learned a lot of information, but I don't want to pretend to be an attorney. So again, there's just a lot of questions that come from it.
Yeah. Sarah's question, the headlines be detrimental. I don't know. I mean, I don't, this has been covered how it's been covered. It's been covered pretty straight by most of the outlets, I think. I'm sure that would have, had that witness been allowed, I'm sure the questions would have revolved around one, retaliation. That individual is called specific counselors, meaning in part Etel, an anti-police activist, which is ridiculous, but that's what's been said. And I'm sure there would have been questions about, interaction with the complaining officer in the 4 days in between, May 8th and when the charges were filed the following Monday. And, if there was, consultation, pressure, whatever, right? But, that was not allowed. But I mean, I guess in the trial, it is specifically, did the thing happen, not, the reasoning for bringing the charges, right? And charges were brought, jury found would have found. I find it ridiculous, but jury found would have found. But sort of piggybacking off of that, to yeah, agreed, Sarah. But sort of piggybacking off of that and kind of the spirit of the video that we showed a few minutes ago, it's I think I is it the best editing job in the world? No, I'm not a video editor. But it's juxtaposing the two things is kind of striking, right? All of those things. Nope, that's not only not assault, that's a reasonable use of force. It is as I've said recently in the past, but recently it's kind of a new thought I've had is this is the expectation that city council sets. The expectation is you guys can do whatever you want and we got your back.
Yeah.
So some people are elevated into a different class because of their union and the political power it can wield.
Yeah, I would say that. I would also say this is an overall just aspect in the United States that obviously police and prosecutors and most government officials, have some form of immunity in relation to their official duties, which was never intended ever. It's just been formed really in the post-Civil War version of our criminal justice system as it's been, which basically allowed slave catchers, it is what it is, to hurt and harm people. That's what it is. And then, of course, in post-Reconstruction South, the abuses that continued on, and then, of course, just the rich people versus poor people thing. So police officers can do whatever they want in the act of duty, and whatever as our chief has said, a reasonable police officer determined would allow that officer to do whatever it is they felt to do in front of them. Which, if you go to the Alex Preddy case in Minnesota, they've already begun to cite that it's reasonable. A reasonable use of force is to shoot someone in the back 9 times, 2 officers while he's on his hands and knees after being pepper sprayed, right? So, and taken down to the ground. so they are willing to extend immunity to those acts. Then, of course, in this case, they would say that all these things are much less violent than that. So then, of course, all of those officers are covered under those rules, even though then municipalities can be sued for those same rules, which is why I've always found it to be wildly foolish. Police can do whatever they want. Literally, 2 people were murdered in Minnesota this year. And if you don't agree with me, that's why I don't talk to you anymore. So just it is what it is. It's an evil thought, but we all watched it, and that's what happened. 2 people were murdered. And those are not the first people that were murdered. Multiple people had been murdered. They were just the first 2 prominent white people that got caught on video being murdered. And so all the black and brown people that had been murdered already, we just didn't have clear enough videos, enough to make people sad. And that's really what it comes down to. Oh, I don't want to see that on my phone, or I don't want my kids to see that, and so therefore I'm going to push back. For the centrists in our country, which by the way apparently rule the country, Tom, because whenever they get uncomfortable, man, they make rapid changes. 2 people were murdered. They didn't just die; they were murdered. Murder is a key word. Murder is a very key word. And then in this city, we've had officers assault. They assaulted people and they were not charged. But we now have our former city councilor who was lifted off the ground. And by the way, when the 2 hands touched, Shauna McGurk, Etel's feet were off the ground. So her apparently able to exert a massive amount of force as a 5'2" or 5'3". I don't want to get Etel's height wrong. She might not like that if I get her height wrong. But she's a small woman. She's proud of it too. She's been very, very openly proud of that. But Shauna McGurk lifted her off the ground, yanked and lifted her off the ground, and her response to that yanking and lifting was what was charged. That's the video that was shown. That's the timestamp that was used. That was what the charge was based on. And I will just point this out that I believe it's selective prosecution. Selective prosecution is this thing where you just decide she's 4'11". Ooh. So I gave her extra, so she's gonna like that. I gave her extra. In the course of this day, Eureka Street, there are much more violent contacts between individuals, not Ashley and Etel, other individuals on the street, and ICE officers and police officers, and that was not charged. Right? Much more. I mean, elbows, arms, legs, smashing. There's a bunch of stuff that happens. None of those are charged. But who was charged by our Worcester, our very brave, very, hard, they were under duress. Man, under duress. Woo! Under duress officers that day. They were under so much pressure, Tom. But they made sure to charge a 16-year-old girl and then two ladies for violent, hugely just, I mean, I don't really think I've ever seen anything more violent than the behavior of a 16-year-old girl, a 4'11" Albanian immigrant woman, and then Ashley. Just violent, just terrible behavior that they needed to charge, and they missed out on all the other stuff that happened before. Just wild stuff. I think about some of the things that happened that day, and that's the stuff that the judge didn't let in. So it's funny, in our chat right now, someone is saying that there's an excuse for the murders that took place in Minnesota, and it's the events that led up to it. But this judge in this case said that the events that led up to it don't matter. So you can't have it both. And that person, that same person, I'm just not going to name him anymore. That same person, it has been going around the internet celebrating the conviction of Etel, celebrating it, even though just now they said that the circumstances, Tom, right? Circumstances outweigh,
But there's no question on if any of those videos were from Eureka Street were enhanced with AI. But that's only when the police officers beating the crap out of somebody for no reason that we asked those questions. I mean, again, just the juxtaposition of what happened that day, and that's not, there's far more. That video could have been much longer. It was like 4 minutes long. That was enough. Get the point across. But there's other stuff. I mean, there's it's again another case in motion right now. Brima Fofana, who was yanked out of his car while it was moving, still in gear, and then multiple officers said that that individual accelerated at them and tried to hit them, and even struck two of them. And then, of course, to their credit, another officer at the police department went and tracked down surveillance video that showed none of that happened.
By the way, I wonder how
you can do that in the Worcester Police Department. You can get together and stick up your story, so you all say a thing that didn't happen, and that's within policy.
Yeah, I wonder how that officer's career is going right now. That tracked down that video.
No, he's fine.
Well, I wonder how the culture is around that person who found a video that clearly shows not only did the officers all lie, but they coordinated their story to create a lie. And then the video was found that shows otherwise, and it happened to be found by an officer. I wonder if he gets any static for that. I'd love it if that officer would reach out. We'd love to have a conversation with you about that. But I also am again, I don't want to go too far in challenging, but I do blame the city government and the city leadership for the culture that has been created that has allowed this kind of approach to citizens. Officers should not have an attitude at any point ever. They should not have an attitude. Even when they're going into the most difficult scenes, they should be the best and the brightest of us. the most joyful, and they're not. They are miserable. They are miserable as a culture, and they allow other officers, a small group. Sure, like we always have to hear bad apples. Those bad apples, man. Those bad apples. But none of them ever step up and say anything about those bad apples. And
right. And
point in
what's the phrase, right?
life,
Bad apples spoil the whole bunch.
Yeah, but so why is it that? How is it that we complain about politicians and we say silence is complicity about politicians, but we don't say the same thing about officers who right now, this is an internal conversation and something that, it's a very difficult subject that I've been working on a long-term story, but there's a culture of spousal abuse in the Worcester Police Department. This is something that's not new. It's something that's been known for a long time. And there's been confrontations between officers hiding their own spousal abuse, and officers stand by and let it happen. Some of the pictures it's just really wild, some of the stuff that I've seen. And then when I've gone to get names to go into stories, those officers almost always chicken out. I don't know what else to say here. So they let another officer's wife get punched in the face, or child in some cases. And there's these are things that have been happening for decades. This is not new. That's okay. We're supposed to say that's okay. But so now, if that kind of broke out, that story, and you started to see officers like brought up for that kind of stuff, people would be like, "Oh, that's good." Get that culture of abuse out. But when it's against citizens outside, which by the way shows this continuity of behavior, right? So like abuse is abuse is abuse is abuse. If you're willing to punch someone in the face while he's on the ground, a kid that you just yanked out of his car because under his breath he called you a name. Because in one of the videos that you showed, a kid followed the order of the officer and he went into his car and he was leaving the scene following the directions. But under his breath, he called the officer a bad name. And that same officer ripped the door open, ripped him out of the car, threw him on the ground, punched him in the face. That case is multiple times. That case is still going on. It was called a reasonable use of force. Now, he was following the officer's directions.
Yep.
So do you think that officer who got so angry that they yanked a person out of a car, threw him on the ground, a child, and smashed him multiple times in the face, according to the other officers? This is not something that I came up with. This is what other officers said. That guy doesn't have the same problem in his daily life? You're telling me that that's just like a one-off? We all know that that's not true. We all know that that's not true. When you get upset, you get upset. And that's just what it is. So if you're using that behavior in other vulnerable populations, it's a reasonable conclusion to think that maybe those behaviors extend their ways into other parts of your life. Those people shouldn't be in charge of us. I don't know what else to say. I don't know how else to put it. And I got to be careful. Like Tom and I have to be very careful. But I'll put it to this way. I have every salacious story in the universe handed to me on a regular basis. Tom and I get stories every single day that are just stupid stories. And we haven't printed all that stuff. People cheating on their wives, people cheating on their husbands, all that stuff. And we don't print that. We don't print that. But at the same time, maybe the spousal abuse stuff needs to start coming out. Maybe we need to start to publish pictures of people's wives with their black eyes. Those are real things. Should I start doing that? Like, should I start going with those kind of things? Is that what you guys want out there? Tough Guy Central. Because eventually that stuff gets out. Eventually, and it's just this is a significant gamble in my mind, Tom. That they think that they rule the city, they win the elections, and they can win cases. That's what they're saying. It's a very clear, and I can say this: Thomas Duffy's statement after the trial was that he, in his first sentence, he said the voters of Worcester sent a message, and the jury sent a basically affirmed that message that the voters sent. So Tom Duffy
drawing the criminal case specifically into a political context, which was an interesting choice of words.
It was very interesting for him. But I think what Tom Duffy is saying, and this is my opinion, John's opinion, but I think it's a very clear opinion. And, I'm going to write about this a little bit more. But I think Tom Duffy is saying to everybody in the city of Worcester that he's in charge. And that's my opinion. It's just my opinion. It's speculation. He hasn't said that specifically. I'm reading into his statement to say that, but that's my opinion. My opinion is that that's what he's trying to tell you. And so to all the other people in Worcester, including a current District 5 City Councilor, Jose Rivera, Tom Duffy just said that you didn't win your race. He did. So how does Jose Rivera feel about that? His entire victory was just gutted. And was taken credit for by someone who was on the doors. By the way, we know that. Tom, we have a great video of him delivering all those lovely postcards to everybody, and taking a little spit break while he did it, or a snot rocket. Got to get that right. Got to be specific because I don't want to get sued or anything. So like a little action there. So we know that he was on the doors. So tying this case to that political entity is very interesting. And, again, you'll hear nothing from the mayor, nothing from the city manager, nothing from any of those just proudly pro-public safety city councilors.
No, they're not. No, come on. They're not pro-public safety. They're pro-them.
No, they love public safety, Tom. They will spend every one of your tax dollars paying off these lawsuits and buying drones to make sure you're safe, Tom. How dare you, Tom, say that they're not pro public safety?
No. I mean, I'll talk about this. They're not pro. They don't give a damn about anybody in this city, and they don't give a damn about any of those cops either. They care about union support for re-election. That's all they care about. So they can go back to that place and accomplish absolutely nothing. To ensure that place accomplishes nothing, they sit there like statues and wait for them to be told what the manager's going to do, and then they go, "Okay."
I am aghast at your opinion, Tom. Aghast that you say such a thing. That those folks are not. Their character is pure, Tom. I mean, none of them would ever. None of them would ever vote against a sprinkler ordinance just because someone who owned a building that might be affected by that in a couple months told them to. None of them would ever do such a thing, Tom. And I refute you, in general principles. And my dragon is, his arm broke.
I mean, look, just last year, the city settled 2 lawsuits for $2.25 million total. They were both about people's freedom being stolen from them. And has the Public Safety Committee attempted to, get to the bottom of what really happened there and try and figure out how to prevent it from happening again? No, because she does not care if you go to prison for things you don't do. She cares about re-election.
Hey, I have a question, Tom. Have they had a meeting yet, Public Safety Committee?
No. Why have a meeting? I mean, it shouldn't meet. It doesn't do anything. Which stands at time stamps 6 months at a time.
We have people who watch our show and are very dedicated watchers of our show and will defend the public safety chair, always, and say how they approach public safety. But the Public Safety Committee has yet to meet this year. What
are they going to meet about? They won't take up anything of substance. All they have to do is stare at crime stats.
It's amazing because all the other committees have managed to meet. And so apparently the public safety chairman does not believe that there's anything public safety related that needs to be discussed at this point.
No.
Right. So,
when there's a need to run some propaganda about, whatever, the next idiotic thing that comes out of the police department, she'll have a meeting to say how wonderful they are, just like she did in June of the meeting after that June 2020 event where that young man was ripped out of his car, and his phone was disappeared. But they can't absolutely know who stole it, so they couldn't come to a conclusion. We can't know. Like the absolute truth is now the new standard of evidence. But we won't look at any of that. We won't look at any of the internal investigatory practices. We won't try and get to the bottom of why people were sent to prison for things they didn't do. We'll just lie about it. First of all, lie about it, and then just refuse to comment on it ever again. Because we're looking toward the future. It doesn't matter if 5 seconds ago we just learned that 2 people were one held for months for a thing they couldn't have possibly done, another one sent to prison for 16 years for a thing they didn't do. Why? Because the Worcester police officer lied. Where's that Worcester police officer? Being harbored inside the Worcester Police Department. Harbored. Criminal being harbored.
Well, I'm grateful to the work of the Worcester Police Department that we were able to take down those 2 like just really super criminal women in Etel and Ashley. I mean, like I feel like as a community now with this trial and this result that we're much safer than we were, right? I mean, doesn't everybody agree that like now that both of them have their probation will end in 6 months or less, that we're all safer? Like everybody,
justice is.
I mean, we get some community
justice
service hours
shining bright.
out of maybe Etel can paint a courtroom or something. We're gonna get some community service hours out of her. You know what I mean? Maybe because she can go shovel snow with Jose. I mean, because that might help. I mean, that shows assisting other, very difficult and hard having populations, because we know from Mr. Duffy's statement that Jose didn't win his own election. So since he didn't win his own election, we need Etel to help him shovel his own snow, because we know he's not doing that on his own. So maybe she can do that for fun. I broke him.
It's
for those
the
audio
moral
only listeners, Tom cracked up. Just so everybody knows. I just want them all to know on the audio.
But the moral grandstanding about this is but look, as I was looking through Eureka Street body camera video for that video I did, and I can't tell what officer it is, and I wouldn't call them out anyway, because it's probably best that some of his peers don't know this, but it was 2 officers walking toward the scene on one body camera. You can't really tell which one's talking and which one was which, but he literally says to the other officer he's walking with, as they're approaching where kind of everyone was gathered, he said, "We're here to get ICE out of here. They're the ones that caused all this." So don't think that it's, don't think of any group of people as a monolith. There are plenty of people over there that are decent people. Many of them try to do the job the right way every day. But when you're in a job for 20 years and the people that are senior to you have taught you nothing but do whatever the hell you want, when the city council sends the message over and over and over again that you can do whatever you want, just like they do, just like the city council is on an ongoing basis just violating the First Amendment.
Yes.
At some point, it's understandable after many years. You may disagree, but I get it that people get swallowed by the culture. They go with the common practice, and when they realize, they don't have to abide by the rules, and the opportunity comes where it's easier for them not to, they just don't, and then nothing happens. And there has been more discipline, handed out with this chief. But as far as I can tell, thus far, it's all been, on the basis of body camera review, and it's kind of been internal stuff, internal finding the issues, and that's great. That's not they certainly were doing that before, so that's great. How civilian complaints are being handled, it's hard to say, because we don't know about these things till years after they happen. Typically, when a lawsuit's filed, after the criminal process plays out, and then you have a whole civil process to go through. So we don't know about these things till well after they happened. And some examples of otherwise. The beer garden, we knew about that almost immediately. So it's hard to make any determination. but certainly, the internal review stuff is good. What happens when this chief decides to move on? Which, look, nobody thinks is years away, right? Nobody thinks that it's still years out that he will be the chief. And then what are they going to do then? Well, a lot of people seem to think they know, and if they're right, God help us all.
That reminds me of a funny story. I didn't tell you this. I'll tell you this on air. This will be fun for our listeners and watchers. But somebody told me the other day that if I were to publish a story saying that the chief of police was going to leave at a certain time this year, that he would stay till next year just to prove me wrong.
And that's why I don't say who literally everyone. I can think of one person that has been like, no, I don't know. I don't think that's the case. That's was in a prominent role in the city, but that's why I don't say who the next chief is publicly, because they'll just say I'm lying, and they'll get their own little media cycle out of it, and then when the time comes, they'll just appoint that person and pretend like they just made a decision 5 minutes ago. So what kind of Jesus Christ?
It's so there's so much there. It's almost like you took all of the nonsense on Twitter and Facebook and like Reddit and
put it in one post,
in a blender, and it came out in one comment, and that's what it is. So no, the thing is that when you and I, like, they're so against any kind of accountability that if I say something out loud, even to people that I've known for years and years and years, there's an automatic pushback, even if I have proof. Like, I can have all the proof in the world, and it doesn't matter, because they'd rather be wrong and not agree with me than be right and be seen as standing against the culture. And so that's never that nowhere in history is that a good thing. That you would rather be wrong but stand with your culture or your work or your whatever it is, whatever particular, your religion, your whatever. It's okay to be wrong. It's a funny thing. This goes back to the horror festival, and like just being a small business owner and like doing small business stuff. If you want to do well in business, you have to be able to give bad news. You have to be able to say to somebody on the other side, "Hey, I messed up, or the check didn't come, or the person didn't pay, or we didn't make as much as we thought we were gonna, or X, yada, 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 yada." You have to be able to give bad news. And in the case of the police department, there's just a general assumption that it's always good news. It's sunshine and puppies and lollipops, and they're just heroes and no one's ever done anything wrong. But when those things, happen, I don't want you to go. I don't want you to go. Keep your money, dude. I would rather you not. I don't want you to know, to be honest with you. I know that's like wild, but I'd rather you not be there than be associated with you. I don't want to be. That's where I'm at. I'm at the. Listen, silence is complicity, dude. Right? It is what it is in today's day and age. If you are silent, you're basically agreeing or allowing someone in their opinion to be associated with you. And at this point, I just don't want that. And I'm okay with people who don't want to associate with me. I'm okay with that. That's fine. Because I think that's the way the world is. Too much like begging to be on the same side as someone else just so you can argue with them. What's the point of that? I don't want to do that anymore.
Yeah, can we? I mean, you guys. Generally can do what you want in the chat, but can we stop it with the Biden-Trump crap? I don't really care.
Doesn't matter. It's good for our chat for the algorithm, though. We get the algorithm going.
Yeah, probably is.
Hey! You know what you guys should do right now? Start arguing about the Epstein files. That'll be good. That'll be good for us.
Oh yeah, they'll love that.
It'll bump the algorithm. But me just saying it right now probably put me on a watch list of some kind. I don't know.
How many times hey John, just real quick sidebar, just one question.
Yeah.
How many times did Biden appear in the Epstein files?
I don't think any.
Oh, weird. Okay. Anyway, moving on.
By the way, there's a great meme on the internet of George Bush, the George W. Bush, and he's it like has him like walking happy to different places, and all it says is not in the Epstein files. And it's just George Bush just going to do, like, he's going to the store, he's walking the dog, he's painting, because I guess he paints now. He's like painting, and I just think it's a great video. Oh, it made me laugh out loud. It made me, and then there's another one of him and Obama at I think it was at Jimmy Carter's funeral. I'm pretty sure. I think it was at Jimmy Carter's funeral where George W. like taps Obama's belly. He whacks him. Yeah. And so someone made a version of it, and it like freeze frames, and because George says something to Obama, he like leans in and says something, and what they put like a text at the bottom, and it says, "Hey, neither of us are in the Epstein files." I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. By the way, I did search myself and Tom Marino to see if we were in the Epstein files, and it turns out we have not made an appearance in the Epstein files. Or Manny. I checked for Manny too. He's not in there.
Everybody else in the world is, though. Continuing, getting back on topic, continuing the theme of city council and the city manager in this case. 124 days since the Worcester Regional Research Bureau produced its report on civilian review. Now, the city manager went on talk to the Commonwealth with Hank Stoltz and said that there was nothing in that report. He was unfamiliar with. He did a lot of research on this, as assistant city manager at the time, and was well versed in this material. And yet, 124 days, can't put this report up. It seems like they don't want it.
Well, I would say this: as much as I've been critical of the city manager, and if he watches this back, he'll be shocked. I don't blame the city manager, because I believe that I believe what Nico said at least 4 times during the last session, that the chairman of the council determines what goes on to the agenda. And so there was a conversation between the city manager and the chairman on what ends up coming out of that office. And so that will come out when Joe Petty says so.
Yeah. Which maybe never. I wonder if they're even going to bring it. They're gutless. They're such worms that I just...
But because, you know what, I would respect it more if they just brought it and then voted against it. Okay, at least you voted against it. It goes back to I don't have again, this goes back to the petition for Palestine, right? I don't have a problem if a city council wants to vote against something. That's okay. You can vote against whatever you want, but don't not let it come to the floor. Just vote against it. It's okay. Like that's normal. That's what legislators do. You have to vote all the time, but they're afraid as a body in general to vote on anything of substance. And so because of that, they just avoid voting. And that to me is silly, when you could just go ahead and vote against it. I don't care. I'm not going to be mad at you because you voted against it. I wasn't mad when other people voted against whatever. There's been weird votes all the time. You know what I mean? That I didn't agree with, even with people that I find myself in agreement with. There's all the time. There's different votes that happen. The reports on the cost of the drones. Those questions that got sent to the city manager were mine. They were actually my questions that I took from Tom's article and my reporting that we've done over the past 5 years now. Well, when did I write that article for Pat? 5 years ago. So you and me have been reporting on that for literally 5 years, since Ed Augustus left. And those numbers came from when I went. You weren't feeling well, and I went to the public safety meeting, and I had given came to me, let me speak. Oh yeah, this is great.
This is classic.
This is
that's fun. A great comment right there.
it's so good because it's so true about what Bernie's answer. I will say this though, Ashley. I don't want to get into like the weeds of this.
No. Let this
But
lie.
I will say it's very possible that did not make it to Joe. I'm not justifying anything, but I would say that I saw who responded to Eileen, and it may not have made it to Joe. Let's just point it that way. I think I'm doing a very good job as a reporter by saying what I'm saying.
Yeah, let that lie for now. Let that play out. That's
that will continue.
easily a comment of the show.
Because she's a way better reporter than I ever will be, and she'll get to the bottom of it. That's all I got to say. Eileen Doyle, the WPS in brief, is a great, just a phenomenal. We're lucky to have coverage of the school committee at that level that we're getting from Miss Doyle. She's incredible.
So, yeah, and 8 expected whenever this civilian review board comes up, 8 expected votes against it. Yep. Yeah. And not one of the 8, still, I'm going to keep saying it, has proposed an alternative. Now, so three councilors have said they want to maintain the status quo.
By the way, I
clearly doesn't work. It has never worked. Will never work. But it is what's best for their re-election chances, so that's the position they take. And they've also, all 3 of them have lied to the people of this city about the role of the Post Commission. Because what I asked? I asked the Post Commission, their official representative, their official media liaison, and then I shortly after the executive director in person, and asked him as well. Did the Post Commission replace any of the responsibilities of local oversight? Both of their answers were categorically no. So there's no reason we shouldn't even be talking about the Post Commission when we're talking about what the city is going to do to manage its own workforce, which the city council refuses to do.
I'm with it. By the way, I think another thing, and this is informed, slightly informed opinion. All right, so there's some reporting here. Part of the reason why the Civilian Review Board will not make it onto the floor anytime soon is because they're afraid of what Christian King will say on the floor in his 10 minutes of speaking time, and that he will articulate a vision and a use for this board that's clear and concise and could, lead to a better, more cooperative, healing engagement between the police department and the people, and that they don't have a mission statement among the 8 that they find to be compelling. And there's more than just the 8 people involved in this, because there's a lot of consulting going on outside of the majority, and they're afraid of what Christian will say. And they're also very much afraid of what Rob will say. And that's because Rob has made a very articulate argument for accountability, on his role in the Human Rights Commission. I guess is the best way for me to say that. I'm really threading the needle here tonight. Like, I'm really pulling strings here. So I'm just saying that both of those counselors have made very strong arguments in various places for how a civilian review board would work in the city of Worcester. Now, I happen to be on Tom's side. I think that a civilian review board is actually not enough, right? And is actually a limited government function. It's limited, and we can actually see it happening right now. Did you know, Tom, that the Boston Civilian Review Board issued subpoenas for the first time? Now, it's been 6 years ago was when it was voted in, 6 or 5, right before COVID, right? So for the first time, it's, by the way, and the same exact arguments against it happened in that we have here in Worcester all the time. There's going to be cranks on there, and it's going to be anti-police, or blah, 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 blah. For the first time, they issued subpoenas, not to police officers, not to police officers. They issued subpoenas to support staff to come and explain expenses. It's literally related to money, and it's support staff for the police department. And there has been a massive fight against those subpoenas, huge political gamble back and forth over in the city of Boston. And so now I want to point out, of the 11 members of the Civilian Review Board in Boston, 11. 11. This is the best stat ever, Tom. 6 are former police officers of some capacities. Former law enforcement personnel. So I think one guy was an FBI guy, and I think another guy was a MP in the military. So, and then 4 police officers, and then the other 5, 4 are former prosecutors. Okay, so 10 people, 6 police officers, 4 former DAs, right, of some capacity, 1 who also was a defense attorney and a victim witness advocate. So that's a DA role too. And then 1 person, 1 is a civilian and has been a civilian their whole life. They never were a law enforcement agency. So they somehow in Boston were able to jury rig 10 of the 11 positions, so they didn't have to deal with it. And so for the first time ever,
because the mayor appoints it.
The mayor appoints them. That's correct. And the city council doesn't have a. The city council can unanimously send a anti-recommendation, but that's never happened so far. But that doesn't. They don't have the power to remove someone. They can just tell the mayor, we have the vote of no confidence. 11, but it has to be 11. Has to be every city councilor has to vote for that to happen. And again,
What's he talking about?
They defanged. You. That's what I mean. There's no way a civilian review board would ever be stacked by anti-police people, because the city council would determine how that civilian review board happens. So they're never going to allow, like for example, you would never see me on the civilian review board because I would be somehow categorically denied access to it. You would never see someone like a Jen Gaskin, who would be an incredible asset for that board with her background and experience. She would never be allowed on that board. And I would go even further. Stacey Luster, former city councilor, she wouldn't be allowed on that board. And she's not. No. She's very very kind of moderate person. Hi, Stacey, if you watch. What I'm saying is that would never happen here. And so the only way for true accountability to this roundabout way we got to here was an inspector general, which is Tom's idea from a few years ago. And he realistically, over the past couple of years, he's convinced me of the need for it. An inspector general is truly independent. They have subpoena power, subpoena authority, and specifically, the very idea of an inspector general is to find the facts. That is the job of an inspector general, to discover the truth and to present it independently of anybody's particular persuasion. And they're like literally limited by their job to that role. That's what an inspector general does. And to me, that would be the most likely power that could result in some real change, because their reports, and we have proof of this, Tom. The proof is in the report that hasn't come to the floor. The report was issued, right, by the Worcester Regional Research Bureau, headed by Paul Matthews, one of the most conservative men in the history of Worcester politics. There's no doubt about this. Okay, very smart guy. He's a great guy, but he's very conservative, and he's a scientist. So he's a conservative scientist. It's a very interesting thing, and he's a data scientist, very different than like someone who's like discovering molecules and shit.
Yeah, there's something in a microscope. He's
a software engineer. This guy's just a super data-driven guy who lets the facts guide him. So when the Civilian Review Board report was released in September, the response to it was instantaneous. No, you can't let that out. Tim Murray had a thing. Hank Stolz was the mouthpiece for everybody, saying that it was the liberals were pushing it and all this other stuff that was happening on the Hank Stolz show in the morning. And you just had an anti against that report, despite the fact that that report was unanimously requested, was championed by Joe Petty, was championed by the city manager. It was championed by Paul Saucier. That just was a year and a half, 2 years ago. When they asked for the report, when they started the process that led to the vote, that led to the report being asked for by the city manager. So the only conclusion is because the report did not deliver the results that they wanted, that's why they opposed it. That's it. There's no other conclusion to make because before the report was requested, they were all for it. All of them. It was unanimous votes. So you have to look into the results and go, am I being hoodwinked? Like the folks in our chat, like that's how they hoodwink you. They literally do it right to your face and they think you're stupid. They do. Listen, they've told me that. They think that the voting people in Worcester are dumb. And so an inspector general at least would be a person whose job would be to deliver a report like that on a regular basis. By the way, the Regional Research Bureau has delivered reports people have argued with in the past on the other side. So it's not like they haven't had, it's not like they're universally acclaimed. The train thing, the cannabis report, the report on Polar Park, the economic development zones, the TIFs. Like there's been a lot of arguments from that agency. So it's not like I don't know you could ever say that Paul Matthews, since he's been in charge, has delivered partisan politics. But even before him, that agency has pretty consistently delivered on both sides of the aisle, if that makes sense.
So I wanted to answer the question because I've given this a tremendous deal amount of thought. Who would hire an inspector general? Should we have one? So what you want is an independent choice, right? So you would do something like you have a selection committee of say 5 people. Now, who appoints the people to the selection committee? Well, you go to maybe the Post Commission, say, the executive director of the Post Commission or somebody of their designation makes the appointment. You go to I just pulled it up and I forget what it's called already. The Committee for Public Counsel Services, right? The organization that basically runs public defenders. And you say the Worcester office, managing director or whatever it is, or somebody direction. And I'm basically using this is the same kind of model that was used to appoint the members to the Post Commission. Something like the Massachusetts Bar Association Division of Civil Rights, whatever their director is, or chair of the board or whatever, or somebody of their designation, and have them, and then you give city manager and some maybe the chief of police, appoint the other 2, and now you have a 5-member body that is going to send 3 selections for people that they get all the resumes, all the applications, and then they of the people that are interested in being considered for the position, they send 3 positions to the city council. 3 people to the city council, and the city council has an election amongst those 3 candidates that were recommended. Right?
Yeah, like they do.
That's how you have a transparent and independent process.
Yeah, I agree. I'm with that. I want to say this to Sarah's other comment that you still have to get the dumb people's votes. Throw that up on the screen, Tom. Throw that. I want to make a point of this. No, you don't, because you guys vote for the same thing every time. There has never been since the late 1980s, since the mayor became directly elected, a group of city councilors, majority-wise, that was not of the same exact strain that we have currently right now. So there's no evidence that they need to get your votes. The people vote the way they vote. Now, we had one outlier this year for the first time ever, and that was Dr. Satra Mitra bought his seat for all intents and purposes. Spent the most money ever for a first-time candidate, and the second most money of all time behind any other candidate in city council history. The first being Joe Petty after he ran for state senate, right? So there's very few people that spend a ton of money in Worcester city politics. That's never been the thing here. So the wild card for me would be if all of a sudden a bunch of really deep-pocketed people decided to start getting interested in our election system. I just don't think they would, because Worcester is viewed as not that big of a deal. That's how we're viewed, and that's kind of what it is. Now you have someone like me. I love the city. I love the city with all purposes, and I'm going to thread the needle again, Tom. Because of my opposition to certain things publicly, people have attacked my businesses.
Yeah.
City administrators have legitimately tried to harm my businesses openly. That's a fact, right? So like they don't even think they need the vote so much. They think that they can punish you if you're against them. So that's entrenched power. So they don't think they need votes. They believe that they're going to have that power and they're going to continue to construct it. By the way, when I say these things to city councilors who know that this is happening, their response is two kinds. One is, you're probably just paranoid. That's one thing. That tends to be the liberal guys, by the way. The conservative majority councilors that I talk to, you know what they say? Well, you shouldn't oppose them. Universally, that's how they say it. That's how they view it. Well, John, you shouldn't have opposed them. So that's my response, Sarah. I don't think voters are dumb. I think that they think you're dumb, and I think that there's just not enough voters. I think that one of the big things is structurally, and this goes back to the charter change, is that if the election was married to the federal elections, you would have a much larger base, and that base would tend to not support this majority the way it is. It would be much more difficult for these candidates. And I think, in fact, if that happened, let's say that happened this cycle, on the next voting cycle, the very first one that was attached to a presidential or a federal election, a bunch of the long-term city councilors you see now would not run.
Yep. Just like if the job was full-time.
They'd be like,
they actually had to do stuff like have hearings and do oversight like they should be doing anyway if they cared.
They would bail immediately. Immediately. I would say this, and as much as I know Joe Petty's the 16-year mayor. The base is the same though, Sarah. The base is the same. It's just shifted to the federal elections because they split the vote. And if you look at the vote totals, there really weren't Jordan Levy, those Jordan Levy mayoral races. There was definitely a higher number at the very beginning, but pretty much since 1993, it's been about the same. It's been pretty much the same. And it's gone up recently. But I would say that part of the reason it went up, Tom, and we've talked about this a little bit, is population.
Discontent.
Yeah, and then discontent. Yeah, that's also true. People are very angry over a period of long time now about the same kind of stuff. Same things.
And look, if you look at surrounding towns, which also do odd-year elections, they don't do any better. They do worse.
They did. That's very true. So it's not a critique of the Worcester system. It's just a critique of detaching the system. By the way, you would save money on the elections.
Yep.
If they were only because we were spending every 4 years, we have 2 extra elections, and then of course we had a recount.
Preliminaries. We have preliminaries too,
and then preliminaries and all this other stuff. So if those were associated with the regular election, the primaries would be lined up. You would have the primary in February instead. Remember, our municipal election, we
do it on state days.
So the September one, right? Yeah. So there would only be 3 elections in the year, and it would be every 2 years. It would be the federal primary in February, the state primary in September, and then the general election in November.
Yeah.
So right now we have 6 every 2 years.
Yep.
So there you go.
So the argument is against that is that you get crowded out by the presidential election, and it's like 3 times as many people vote. And I tend to believe that if people are going to vote and they know that they're going to get the second ballot that is for local elections, they're at least going to check in,
right,
and see what people are about.
But so now there are some towns that do match it, right? And I think that there's still.
I don't think so.
Not in Massachusetts. Well, no. I mean, in other places in the country.
I'm not sure.
And that doesn't always translate. Like it doesn't always like sometimes. Like for example, in this past presidential election, perfect example. There was in Massachusetts, there was I think it was 11% of the ballots were only voted for the presidential candidate and didn't vote down ballot at all. both.
And yeah, so if people choose not to vote, they choose not to vote. It is what it
Yeah,
is.
so that might still happen. So I still think that it's going to be an informed electorate. I just think that much more people would participate because the money. I think that having it aligned, it would save us money over time, but also it would force candidates to spend more to get attention. And I think that would lead to maybe a fairer thing. Now, again, there's no guarantee in any of this, but
I mean, studies say that the engagement in local is much different when elections are synced with state and federal. That's what the research says. And it's not. There's no nuance there. I mean, as far as I've seen, at least, the research on this isn't massive, but is pretty much in sync with each other. That this increases engagement, and so yeah, I mean, that's the two. If I were to wave a magic wand, full-time councils with subcommittees that are meaningful and have real rules. With full-time councils, you could also put 5 people on a committee. Which would mean that people can talk to each other, because under the open meeting law, if you're not supposed to meet with a quorum, the majority, a voting majority of any public body, that has open meetings. And so that, in reality, that means that with 3 member council committees, they're not supposed to talk about anything that could potentially come before their committee ever.
True.
They can't have a conversation. There's only 3 of them.
And
those 5 of them, they could two people could talk to each other.
Well, by the way, which led to a complaint by another guy who hates our guts over there, Mr. Quist, against Etel for the letter that was sent, and it was really by the way, when you look at that issue, it was just an email exchange. It wasn't an actual conversation. That was
still qualifies.
Open meetings law violation. So again, no, and I agree. It was still, again, that's something that. I would say that probably happens a lot more than we realize it, but there's not a plant in there to make a complaint. So in this case, there was. Look, and someone was tipped off and told the complaint, and that's what it is.
I mean, these people that are sending, bold messages to the police department, do whatever you want. You think they really care about the law? They're not in the lower caste. They're in the upper caste. They can do whatever they want. Just ask them.
Yeah, that is what it is. Well, Tom, we kind of got to hopefully this would be like a nice time to stop.
Yeah, let's go to John's favorite part of the show.
This is no one believes you about that, by the way. By the way, real quickly, the Tom's favorite things, which is when I asked Tom about his favorite things, a fun, lighthearted section of the show. Very, very lighthearted. It's where we have giggles and happiness, generally speaking. I would say that Tom, we would love it if there was a sponsor. And then we could display a logo right here. Put your hands out, Tom. Come on, give me hands. Give me hands. Logo right there for Tom's favorite things. We could be our sponsor. So if there's a company out there, and there have been some conversations. So if you are a small business owner watching this right now or listening, and you want your company to be the sponsor, you better get in on this real quick. Because Tom's favorite things is a hot commodity, and it's ready to be off the presses. All right, so with the Dead of Winter Horror Film Festival and Convention this weekend at the DCU Center. That is, again, the Dead of Winter Horror Film Festival and Convention, featuring 50 films, Tom. 50 films, all local artists. I'm sure we may have covered this before, but let's just talk about it real quick. Tom, who is your favorite horror icon? That's a tough one.
I thought you were going to ask me film, and I was going to have a good joke answer for you. Horror icon, like character.
Yeah. So the term horror icon usually refers to a character who has kind of transcended horror, made it into like the kind of the regular world, and people wear costumes of the person. They make fun of it. It's kind of that. So like Freddy, Jason, Mike Myers. There's a bunch of
I mean, again, I've said it. I'm not a horror buff by any means. I'd probably go with Freddy. I always liked those. When I was a kid, like the Nightmare on Elm Streets. I mean, look, the two for normies, right? It's Jason and Freddy, and Friday the 13th just got so corny at the end that like the the Manhattan one or whatever it was, the New York City one. I mean, it was just ridiculous. Funny.
Jason in Manhattan.
Yeah, just stupid, awful, terrible.
Oh,
I think that's when he was body jumping. But no, I always the Nightmare on Elm Street ones were always, I like those as a kid.
Our chat is lit tonight, huh? Horror. I mean, are you making fun of is my accent getting made fun of a little bit there? A little. I think it might. It just might. It just might be made. So I would say this is a really tough one, but after I thought about this a lot, I would say that it's probably Candyman, Tony Todd, and reason being is because I did get a chance to meet him before he passed away, and he's one of the nicest humans I had ever met in my life. But I also think that that movie is actually a really good movie. Like if you go back and watch it now, I think that it kind of transcended its thing, and it's a thriller, not just. I think most horror movies that add an element of thrill to the movie become really good films, and I think that's why you've seen some interest in horror over the past 15 years. It's definitely increased as far as like mainstream Hollywood, right? And the movie Weapons very much might win the Oscar. Not Weapons. Sinners might win the Oscar. So, I mean, that's a legitimate contender. And there's only been one movie that's classified as a horror movie that's ever won the best Oscar, and that's Silence of the Lambs. I would argue that it's not a horror movie, but that's a big argument. Long-term movie argument we get into later. So, I would say Candyman, Tony Todd, great.
What was that parody of the parody movie that's a zombie movie? God, I watched it 100 times, like on back in the day on cable. At the end, the dude's got his friend chained up in the shed and they're playing video games. He's a zombie.
Oh, Shaun of the Dead.
Shaun of the Dead. That was going to be great. That was good. If you would have asked me my favorite horror movie, that was going to be it. I couldn't.
Yeah, Shaun of the Dead is a great movie. I think that's a great movie. It's hysterical. It's funny too because I like the slow zombies. I don't like the fast zombies. The movies with the slow zombies, that makes sense to me. Because if they're dead, they're going to be less than they were.
Yeah, but mutation and all that,
Yeah. But the Resident Evil zombies are ridiculous, stupid. They're leaping miles in the air and they're running, infinite speed. Those movies are nuts. Anyways, zombies. I'm pro zombies too.
There was nothing like back in the day, like Resident Evil 3, when you walked in the room the first time you saw the spider-looking one.
Yeah, those
it's crawling on the ceiling above you, and you look down at the screen, and you got like 2 bullets in your pistol. You're like, this ain't gonna work out.
No, so the Resident Evil games were some of the best horror games of all time, for sure. That and Silent Hill, those are great horror games. Awesome horror games. All right.
Yeah. All right.
I've run out of steam.
Fair enough. Thank you, everybody, for checking in and participating in questions and all that. Have a wonderful week. We will be back here next Sunday at 8:35 and try to screw it up less next time. Until then, deuces.